Mr. Chairman.
Also in attendance is
Yes.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens
Yes, and
Alderman
Alderman
Patricia
Clay.
And me. Don't forget the president.
Yes.
Sonia.
Just the
and that
president.
other person.
And Alderman Wilshire.
Okay, we have a quorum. First item of business is public comment. Is there anyone that would like to speak to anything that's on the agenda? Please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mary Lou Blaisdell, 32 Webster Street in Nashua. I chair the Downtown Improvement Committee, and I've spoken to you before. I'd just like to speak again tonight on encouraging you to continue to fund the committee. I have a couple letters. I sent them to you, Chairman Dodd.
They're on the record.
They're on the record from a couple business owners downtown. Also on the record, you have a list of all of our expenditures from 2015 through 2021. We didn't spend during COVID much at all. I think we've been very diligent of the monies that the city has awarded us. We've used it to reinvest it back into downtown every single time, from everything from the banners to the Christmas lights, funding. We did a trolley study one summer. We have funded an intern to talk about outside dining with diners. We have funded overtime to keep the streets clean all summer long. We have funded Great American Downtown Farmers Market and the Stroll. So we really try to be very diligent in the monies that are given to us and how they are spent. We try to make sure that we are inclusive of everybody downtown and of what the needs are. And I just hope that you can continue to fund us and so that we can continue to keep these projects going. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else, public comment?
Good evening, Tim Sennett. I live at 62 Underhill Street in Nashua. I am also a member of the Downtown Improvement Committee, I believe the newest member. And just because it came up in discussion, I was recently appointed to the Board of Directors of the Great American Downtown. I'm here tonight to also speak in favor of 022-019, which would continue the funding for the Downtown Improvement Committee. I'm not a downtown business owner. I'm on the committee as a representative of downtown consumers. You know, I'll be fully candid that I did not fully appreciate the magnitude of the work that the Downtown Improvement Committee did when I first signed up to volunteer to join that committee. But having worked with them for just under a year now, you've got something really special here. You've got a committee comprised primarily of downtown business owners who have taken significant steps to invest a lot of their own personal time into the surrounding area around their businesses beyond their storefront. I don't think that can be diminished when we look at our downtown. The downtown is only as strong as the folks that reside down there and do business down there. And to have such an investment back into the city from that business community, some of whom don't even reside in Nashua, I think there's a great deal of value to that. And I think it would be a shame to see the funding for this committee go by the wayside. I think this is a very tempered and reasonable approach to the funding that's consistent with recent changes that have been made in the city in terms of the outdoor dining program. And I would be very happy to see it continue for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Anyone else, public comment?
Good evening. My name's Melissa Capola. I live at 45 Majestic Ave in Nashua. I'm the current business owner for Vibe Yoga at 182 Main Street and Aerial Moon Yoga Studio at 85 West Pearl Street. I just would like to speak for a moment on how the grant that I received from the Downtown Improvement Community helped me maintain my business. I've worked at BAE Systems for 17 years in the community and quit in November of 2019 to open my own business. I signed the lease at 182 Main Street in January of 2020. Took a couple months to get ready and was ready to open in April and delayed the opening due to COVID until July 5th of 2020. For the beginning of opening my business, thank goodness I didn't have any expectations of what it was to open a small business. I taught the majority of the classes and didn't pay myself for about a year. The grant allowed me to hire more teachers and allowed me to start collecting some salary. And when I was dealing with COVID like everyone else, I was not allowed to get a lot of the other grant money that other companies were allowed to receive because you had to show a loss of profit from loss of revenue from 2019 to 2020, and I was not open in 2019. And I wasn't going back to my corporate job either. Ariel Moon also received grant money, and I recently took over that business in this January, and I'm very excited to be on both sides of the Center for Performing Arts. And I'll just add that I've seen a lot of new people who are new to Nashua move into the community over the past few years, and a lot of them see the yoga studio on Main Street come in looking for that community. And a lot of people who have been in Nashua for a longer time have mentioned often the improvement they've seen over the last 10 years or so in downtown Nashua. I've lived here on and off since 2003 and am very excited to be part of the downtown businesses now. I will add, I'm also on the board for Great American Downtown, and so I'm looking forward to seeing the collaboration between all of these groups so we can keep Main Street and Nashua moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see anyone. Okay. Communications?
This evening, we have communications from Downtown Improvements Committee regarding minutes from the 12/9/22 meeting with a motion to support ordinance 0-22-019. Also, further communications from Alderman Ben Clemens regarding Downtown Improvements Committee expenses. Also, further communications from Alderman Ben Clemens where Downtown Improvements Committee money is spent. Also, last further communication from Mayor Jim Donges in support of ordinance 0-22-019.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communications and place them on file. Unfinished business?
There is none.
New business resolutions?
None?
New business ordinances?
None.
Tabled in committee?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to remove from the table 0-22-019, and it would have to be by roll call.
Yes, okay. So the motion is to remove 0-22-19 from the table for consideration this evening. And would the clerk please call the roll by...
Alderman John Sullivan?
Yes.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly?
Yes.
Alderman Ernest Jettie?
Yes.
Alderman June Karen?
Yes.
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien votes yes. Chairman Alderman Richard A. Dowd.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So 0-22-19 is now on the table. Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion for final passage of 0-22-019.
Okay. Motion on the
Mr.
floor.
Chairman,
Yes.
am I not on the budget list?
You
Because I
should
wasn't
be.
on roll call and I
Yeah.
wasn't.
No, you know, and I apologize if that's the case. You're not on the script, so I will.
But I am here, I am a member of budget.
I'm sure it was a typo, and I'm sorry, Madam President. I will add you forthwith.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wonder why that wasn't there. Okay, so the motion on the floor now for discussion is 0-22-19, changing the downtown improvements funding plan. And so this evening, we've always, for many years, given the Downtown Improvements Committee funding. We're just looking at a different scenario on how they get the money. Is there anyone that would like to comment? Alderman Clements?
Thank you. I guess I'm gonna just leave this open. I mean, I provided the committee had a lot of questions the last time. I hoped to get most of the answers to you in the communications. There was one that did not come over, and it was a question of what parking revenue was. So, and I wanted to clarify that, before we get into the rest of the discussion. So the way that the calculations for the Downtown Improvement Committee go now, before this ordinance change, if it's adopted, is that we take a calendar year of parking revenue, so it's parking revenue from leases, fees, and meters. And as of 2022, the city took in on the calendar year basis, so from January 1st to December 31st, $610,435.80 in parking revenue. So the way that the ordinance is written now is that anything over $728,000 would go towards the Downtown Improvement Committee. Since 2020, with COVID and the changes that we made on Main Street with the barriers, we have not surpassed that threshold. In years past, we have, and in fact, in 2018 and 2019, we were at $125,000 over that threshold. So that's how that figure is calculated. It's a calendar year basis, and then in the budget that's crafted by the mayor, whatever that figure is over that 728 goes to the Downtown Improvement Committee historically. The reason for this ordinance obviously is because we have not reached that threshold in a while, and it's because of the changes that we've done. So I wanted to clarify that portion of the conversation, because I know that that was not in the communications that I had sent over. So other than that, I guess I would be curious to see what the other members think, having read the information that was sent over.
So Alderman Clemens, in your opinion, instead of it being from January to December now, it'll become part of the budget and be available in July of the calendar year, because it will now be out of the budget specifically?
So if I could answer that, yes. So it's always been on the budget year. It's just that the calculation for the amount was done on a calendar year basis. And the reason for that is because if you think about it, you're constantly taking in parking revenue throughout the year, right? So that's a money that's always coming into the city. It's not like property taxes where it only comes in twice a year. Mm-hmm. So the theory behind the calendar year was that once you got to January 1st, you would know how much money from the previous year you've collected. And that money could then be set aside and budgeted into the following calendar or following budget. So it was always a year behind, if you will, when you budgeted that. What we're suggesting now is that rather than waiting to find out what the amount is, we're just going to take a flat sum of $100,000 every year and allocate that to the Downtown Improvement Committee. And that's based on historical allocations.
Okay. Other comments?
Alderwoman
You do
Kelly.
have,
Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. I'm just,
nice.
Oh, I'm sorry, do I not get to go?
Yeah,
No.
you can,
go ahead, you can go.
I quoted the name, but John had his hand up, so it's up to, you want to defer to her, or you want to?
Ladies first.
Okay. Alderwoman
Thank
Kelly.
you. I want to thank the committee, the Downtown Improvement Committee, as well as Alderman Clemens, who I know heralded some of the questions we had from last time. I don't think that it was ever a question in my mind whether we were going to fund it. We just wanted some additional information in terms of the change and also what the committee has been up to. I, as a downtown business owner, have seen all the great things they did, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew what they've been up to. So it was really nice to see so many downtown business owners come out tonight in support of the committee. They've done a lot of great things. So I am going to support this. I think it's the right move. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. I was just curious about the ordinance itself, the history of it, how we picked such a crooked number of $728,000 why that was, I don't know if anybody can speak to, you can, great.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. So when the original, we have to go back to 2009, when a committee was formed to study what we could possibly do with downtown and to get some reinvigoration down there and some money towards different projects and things that we could do. What was initially come up with was we will take parking meter revenue and allocate that towards downtown. The concern at the time, though, was that if you had looked in the budget book prior to 2009, for probably 6 or 7 years prior to that, there was always an amount of $728,000 that was budgeted historically for parking meters. So the idea was we were going to raise parking meter revenue. So it went from 50 cents an hour or 75 cents an hour to $1.50 an hour on Main Street. We created the zones. There was zone 1 and 2 and 3. And the idea was that while we were raising the parking meter revenue on the folks who come downtown, the commitment by the city at that time was to say, anything extra that the city gets off of that revenue, we will ensure to put it back into downtown. So in other words, it was a compromise to say that what had been historically budgeted was going to stay within the city coffers to do things like paving, sidewalk projects, things like that. Anything above and beyond that would go to downtown and be dedicated to downtown improvements. That was the commitment at the time. And hopefully that answers that question. I'm gonna add to it, if the chairman will allow me to say that I believe now we still owe the people that commitment. And the reason I say that is because we're not here discussing reducing the parking meters down from $1.50 to 75 cents again. And I don't think anybody here would want to do that because we'd end up really taking a hit. But we do owe the people that commitment to say that, hey, we raised those meters a long time ago, and the extra money that you're paying still should go downtown. Some of it should. And that's kind of where we're at today.
Okay, the follow-up,
Sullivan?
please. Thank you. When this is apportioned in the budget, what's the flow? So does it come out of the revenue line, then go into a trust fund, and then go out to the downtown improvement committee? Because I did notice in the detail, which was fantastic, that everything was in a trust fund and everything was paid out of the trust fund. Is that how it's going to go on the go forward?
Yes, if I could answer that, yes, so it would. It would continue to be that way. And actually, the interesting part of this process is that even though the ordinance states, how we do the calculation and all of that, it's actually part of the mayor's budget. And it historically, through Mayor Lozo and Mayor Donchis, has been a part of their budgets. So they've followed the ordinance and budget that amount every year. It comes before the Board of Aldermen in the Budget Committee. You folks generally approve it, and then it goes in, the last few years has gone into that trust fund, and that's where it stays. All the anything that comes in or out is tracked through that trust fund.
Okay,
Well said.
all set, thanks.
And talking to Mr. Griffin, if this passes, then there'll be a line item in the budget for the $100,000, and it'll be subject to the budget review, but there'll probably be a couple other things that we normally do by legislation that'll also be in there in the same area. But anyway, that's for another budget. Any other questions? Yes, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support this. I compliment Alderman Clemmons for the good work that you did with this. I think this is a good, it's clean hands, it's transparent. Taxpayers, when it's designated into its own fund, it's easier for the taxpayers to track this. I think that that's a step in the right direction. The other way was kind of murky. You would have to get a little bit into the weeds. But the other thing is, let's look at the parking issues. I'm not going to get deep into it. It's the wrong discussion in the wrong venue. But however, that money that was saved with this now can go back to trying to make the parking department healthier than what it exists right now. So I see the ends justifying the means. It satisfies the Downtown Improvement Agency, and at the same time, allow us to do a good job and to watch the parking meters, because right now, the city of Nashua leaves money in the street because we don't have enough personnel to collect the findage. So this is definitely a step in the right direction. It'll be the best for the taxpayers. Thank you.
I'm glad you didn't get into the parking study, because that would have been
No,
off.
I'm not touching that.
That would have been off the dartboard.
No, like releasing cats out of the bag tonight.
Any other questions? Alderman Wiltshire, member of the Budget Committee.
I don't have a question.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Happy to support this legislation. I know Alderman Clemmons worked on this many years ago, and he's still working on it. I give him plenty of kudos for that. It's important. I think, helping our downtown merchants is important. They make the feel of downtown welcoming. I just can't say enough. There were many years where downtown was almost looking like a ghost town. Lots of stores were boarded up. People just weren't down there. And I think I think we owe it to our citizens to do this. So I'm going to support it.
Alderman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I don't talk too much, but I want to thank Alderman Clemmons too for doing this. And I think one of the things is Alderman O'Brien says it's consistent, and it'll be in the budget. Future aldermen that will be sitting here will know that this is $100,000 that they're getting. And I really appreciated the budget to get a look at what you spend it on. I mean, I've been involved with downtown programs for a long time, but there are some things in there that I didn't realize that you took care of. So I think that's a great segue. And, the parking meter funds can go somewhere else, and hopefully that'll be a good thing. So I really think that's great. Just a heads up, Summer Fun is celebrating 50 years, so you might want to think about that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Thank you. So I have several questions. Some of them probably aren't, you're trying to solve a particular problem, but if you wouldn't mind my asking some more broad
As long as we don't
questions.
get into the specific things they're spending it on, because that's not a part of the equation. It's whether we're going to fund them or not fund them. How they spend it is, once we give it to them, is their purview. Unless you have a specific thing you're really hung up on them not spending money on, you can mention it, but it's not part of this legislation.
Okay, may I continue?
Continue.
So you talked, if I could, through you to Alderman Clemmons, the history of this thing, wasn't there a time when the city was trying to get the same types of things that the Downtown Improvement Committee are doing? The city was trying to get the merchants to, or the downtown property owners more specifically, to help pay for that by creating a special, I forget what it was called, some special tax district for downtown, where the property owners of the downtown area, and I don't know how extensive it was and what it included, but that they would be charged an extra fee, and that money would be used for these purposes. And my memory is that, I don't know if this is accurate, my memory is that the downtown property owners rejected that notion, and this plan to use the parking meter revenue was the kind of a substitute for that. Is that, do you remember that?
That's correct. So it was I believe it was the BIDA committee, I think it was called, or Business Improvement District, something. And yes, so the idea was to study that to see if there would be an overlay tax on the downtown area, which would be paid by the property owners in the district. And that idea was not popular for a number of reasons. And so an alternative plan came to say, instead of charging the property owner, we'll charge the consumer who comes downtown. And in turn, their money that they put into the parking meter they will see a return on investment through the Downtown Improvement Committee and the different things that committee can fund. So rather than do it on the property owner, it was given to the consumer instead via parking meters, and the rest is where we're at today.
I remember some of that conversation. There was a problem of who's gonna collect, what happens if somebody doesn't pay. It was an administrative nightmare. This is much simpler.
So, may I continue?
Yes, sure.
So, so the difference is that, as, instead of the property owners, and because the property owners would pass that on to the merchants by charging them more rent, I assume, but the downtown business people would be, paying for this as opposed to the consumers or the taxpayers. And, so currently, we have the Downtown Improvement Committee. We also have Great American Downtown. And I think that Great American Downtown is also funded largely by the taxpayers, is it not? Is I
Partially.
wrong about that?
Not currently, but partially, yes. It has been some monies given to GAD every year in the budget, but yeah, but it's an entirely different organization, entirely different goals. Alderman Clements, you want to?
Yeah, so just a little bit of context on that. So like this year, the budget committee decided that there was $100,000, I believe, that was allocated to the Downtown Improvement Committee. And the budget committee this year took $50,000 of that and it allocated it to Great American Downtown and put the rest back to the taxpayers, actually. And so there has been times when the city does fund Great American Downtown. It might be $50,000 every year, I think.
It was funded recently because of COVID.
Right, and there are times as well when the Downtown Improvement Committee, independent of the Budget Committee here, will fund different things that Great American Downtown is organizing, such as the farmers market. There were some concerts in the past that they would put money towards. So the two groups work together, but Great American Downtown is funded primarily and mostly by the private sector. And its role is different than the Downtown Improvement Committee in the sense that they work, again, with the private sector to do different events and bring people downtown, whereas the Downtown Improvement Committee is really focused on making sure that we have vibrancy, that the downtown is clean, they do the lights, things like that. And if there's money, they'll fund things on occasion, like a concert here or there, or contribute to the farmer's market, that type of thing.
Okay.
Follow up?
Please. So I asked Jill Stansfield, I forget what her title is, but the parking manager or, about if we took 100,000 from parking operations, how would that affect them? And she said similar to what you said, for 2021, the calendar year, the revenue for last year, she said, was $632,663.87. A little more than what you said, but a similar number. The expenses were $326,812.45. So that gives a difference of $305,851. So she said that they could afford the 100,000, but as I understand it, parking operations, that revenue is the meters and the rental fees and that type of thing, and the expenses are, I'm not sure what the I guess it's the people who manage the parking and parking garages and that type of thing. Also part of parking is parking enforcement, which is when people get a ticket, I think, and they pay that ticket, that's the parking enforcement revenue, which was $348,961.
Alderman Jenny, I think I can clarify this. If this legislation passes, it's no longer part of the parking revenues whatsoever.
That's not entirely true. It is an offset, but.
I thought it was gonna be a separate line item in the budget.
It is, and it always has been, and it will continue to be. It's just that it's a flat amount now. Every year, it's a flat
Right,
amount.
but it's not necessarily going to be subtracted from parking revenues.
Correct.
So the parking revenues will all go to the parking group.
So can I just, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
can I clarify that? So it has never truly been from the parking revenue. It's always been a calculation of sorts that comes from property taxes. And that is, so it's an offset, right? So you figure you have $100,000 in parking revenue that has to go towards paving or, street maintenance, things like that. And you have 100,000 in property taxes over here. Basically, we do an accounting swap and we move them from one to the other. And it's been done for years and years and years because that's what state law makes us do. It will still be that swap. It's just that it's going to be $100,000 even every year.
So if I understand, Lee's talking to Mr. Griffin, if this passes, the 100,000 will be in the budget.
Correct.
For a downtown improvements committee.
Correct.
And it makes no difference to how much the parking revenues is.
That's correct.
So
And it never, and truly it never has.
So they're not directly related anymore. That subtraction, to get the 100,000, it's no longer,
Right.
yes.
So as I read the ordinance, it says, and this is how this is what we're being asked to pass. Starting with the fiscal year 2024 budget, an amount equivalent to the sum of parking revenue of 100,000 shall be appropriated annually in the budget to be used for the purpose of improving the downtown -1 zoning district. So it sounds to me like, it says it's coming from parking revenue, doesn't it?
It's an,
Alderman Clemmons?
Thank you. No, it's an equivalent sum of money. So in other words, what that means is that so the way that it was written before was that whatever over $728,000, let's say it was $100,000, so you had $828,000, right? Then 100,000 of that equivalent sum of money would be appropriated to the Downtown Improvement Committee. It's no different now. It's just that it's, instead of it being contingent upon whatever's over that amount, it's just $100,000. So it never really truly was parking money. It was always a equivalent sum of money that was substituted one for the other. So that is still going to be the case. It's just that it's going to be a flat amount every year.
But what we're saying in the ordinance is, regardless of what the parking revenues are, $100,000 goes to the Downtown Improvement Committee.
Correct.
Okay.
Alderman Jettie, you...
Yeah, and so, if I could ask one more question. So the, you know, I think that, you know, maybe not all of the other departments, but I think most of other departments, every year they come up with a budget and they say, this is the amount of money we need. And, you know, the mayor either agrees with them or doesn't agree, and he presents a budget to us, and we on the Budget Review Committee go through it and question it, and then we make a recommendation to the full board, and the full board acts accordingly. But here, instead, we're saying, you know, that we're not asking the Downtown Improvement Committee to come to us with a budget and saying, this is what we want to do, and this is how much it's going to cost, and then we either agree with them or don't agree with them. What we're doing here is we're saying, okay, you know, you're going to have $100,000, you know, and they've always, you know, they've always been, you know, frugal and you know, I don't think they've ever used the money in a bad way. But we're saying to them, here's the $100,000, and so they spend it however they think is appropriate. It seems like, you know, and I'm just thinking out loud with all of you who are more experienced with budgets than I am. But why, you know, how do we justify doing it that way for this committee as opposed to, you know, all the other departments?
Yeah, a bunch of people who want to answer the question. I'm going to let Alderman Wilshire, as president of the board, answer it.
Thank you. We do the same thing, Alderman Jettie, with review and comment money. We do the same thing with the Nashua Senior Activity Center. We give them $25,000 a year and say, here you go. We don't question them. We don't bring them in and have them, you know, we know it's going to a good purpose. We know they're going to use it for their property to maintain things. The same concept here with this.
They're not a city department. We have no
Right.
control over them.
No.
They're not a city department. I don't care what you're going to say, Ben. They're
Well,
not a city department.
Can I add something?
You can amplify.
What I want to say is actually all of the money that is spent by the Downtown Improvement Committee is either expended by the mayor or his agent. It is subject to the laws of this city, the ordinances of this city. And if it's over $25,000, it comes before the Finance Committee and gets approved there. So there is not a case where any of that money is not being expended by someone in the city.
But they're not
So
a city
all the
department.
money that if they vote, if the committee votes and says, we want to spend the money on this, the mayor has to agree. And then in some cases, depending on how much it is, the Finance Committee has
The
to
question
agree.
that Alderman Jettie was getting to is they don't come to us and provide us a budget and we approve what they're going to spend it on. No, they're not a
No,
city
correct.
department. But you're right, it does go through spending authority regulation. Any other, you all said, Alderman Jettie?
Yep, thank you.
Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. So I guess we're really just parsing language here, but in the last exchange, it did make me reread the ordinance. So if we look at the 100,000, when you first read it, you think that we're paying for it out of parking revenue. But that's not really the case when I reread it, based on that last conversation. In essence, we're apportioning the money, it's coming out of tax revenue. It's not gonna, in the city budget, fiscal year 2024, you're not gonna see an expense line in the parking department less $100,000 to downtown improvement. You're nodding. Does that mean I'm right, or you are gonna see it?
Alderman Clements, you want to answer that?
That's correct. You're not gonna see it come from there because it's not parking meter revenue. It is an offset. And the theory behind that is you spend that money, let's say basically we spend enough property tax money on things like paving every year, where instead of spending $100,000 extra on paving, we'll take that from the parking meter revenue and spend it and replace that money. So we spend millions of dollars on paving, on that kind of project. So what happens is traditionally every year, whenever we would take that $100,000 from property tax revenue to whatever allocation of the paving there was, right? Say for example, $1 million, 100,000 or whatever that sum of money was, would go from parking meter revenue over to paving. So it's an accounting mechanism, and it unfortunately is required us to do that because of state law. So it's basically a calculation that we take, and then we say, okay, we're gonna swap out sums of money.
Another way to look at this is the vast amount, I won't say all, but the vast amount of parking revenue is generated because the merchants have spent money forming their businesses, and their customers are paying for this. And so this is to help attract the downtown so they get more customers, which increases the amount of parking. Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. Adding to what Alderman Clements had said, yes, I think state law says that you can't write a check out of the revenue fund. So if I'm not mistaken, that's why we do the swap. It's something
It has to
similar
do
that.
with, you can't spend meter money on some of the things that the downtown improvement.
We'll be doing, right. But that's a state law. The other thing to add about GAD is that they are a 501c, unlike downtown improvement, which is a city committee that's created for that. And I wrote my note here and I can't even read it. The other thing about the budget that I wanted to comment on, I know that annually that they spend their money on certain things such as the lights and so on. So if someone said they had the budget, but the other thing is they also don't know what might come up. There could be a special celebration that the city suddenly decides they want to do, and downtown improvement helps with that. Downtown improvement helped fund some of the studies for the Performing Arts Center. So these are things that you don't necessarily budget for because you don't know they're going to come down. And that's kind of one of the things that makes them a little different than a department per se. So, I mean, I just wanted to add that. One other question that I have, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Stanfield's very understaffed department is also paid out of the meters and so on. So that's part of what's doing that. The study that they're doing for the parking garages comes out of the meter monies and so on. Am I correct with that?
Yes.
So that's why, part of the reason why we had also said the 728, I think, like you said, it was historical, but we're now using that money also to cover that department so that that doesn't come out of tax. It's kind of supposed to be a zero-sum game type thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Are there any more questions before we take a vote? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be a roll call vote. Our newest member, Alderman Wilshire. Alderman John Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Ernest Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman June Karen,
Yes.
Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien votes yes. Our Chairman, Richard A. Dowd.
Yes. Motion is carried. And we've sent on to the full board with a recommendation for final passage. General discussion? Alderman Clemmons.
I just want to thank everybody who's here and everybody on the committee for their patience and for their vote in favor tonight. I'm sure that the downtown merchants, and I know the Downtown Improvement Committee, thanks you for that and your support. And hopefully we will continue to do great things in the future. So thank you all.
Any other comments? I just want to say I've lived here a few years. And over the years, the way the downtown was taken care of was like a sinus wave. But since the Downtown Improvement Committee has had it, it's pretty level and it's very nice. So congratulations to doing a great job. No other comments? Public comment? Seeing none. Remarks by Alderman. Alderman Glee.
Thank you. I could have made this comment prior, but I want to thank Ms. Blaisdell for her hard work. And I know she owns her own business downtown, but she also works very tirelessly on the Downtown Improvement Committee, as well as some of the other city committees, especially with the PAC and so on. So thank you so much for all you do and all your volunteers too. Thank you.
Alderman Jettie.
Yeah, so that, you know, as I was looking into this for this meeting and you know, part of my comments really aren't anything to do with the Downtown Improvement Committee, but I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that, and when you look at the numbers, as I was trying to explain earlier, the you know, the money we're getting from parking, you know, from meter revenue and parking enforcement, the revenue is, you know, is not meeting the expenses of parking operations and parking enforcement. And, you know, Chairman, let's see, Vice Clerk O'Brien. I'm so used to seeing you as chairman.
We swapped seats just for tonight.
Yes. As he pointed out, you know, earlier that you know, we've got some big expenses coming up, and something that he mentioned earlier about how parking enforcement, you know, we're not enforcing, you know, the parking regulations as, you know, parking ordinances right now as much as we should because of lack of staff. And you know, they really need to hire more staff, which is going to cost more money. And you know, we're doing, you know, we're becoming aware of the deterioration of the parking garages. You know, we're doing a study, and you know, we're going to have to spend quite a bit of money bringing them up. And so you know, it's just,
Where's the parking study?
I didn't have to say
You
it.
just
this
put a
time.
pin in
I
Director
don't think
Cummings'
it's
doll.
gonna, I don't think it exists.
so I just want to
Yeah, I don't think it
bring up the
exists.
fact that we're, you know, that parking is going to cost a lot more money than it has been. And, you know, that money's going to come out of the, you know, if we spend what we, you know, should. And, you know, the argument that you got to take care of what you have, it's less expensive to maintain what you have rather than, you know, rebuilding what you've lost. So these are among the many problems the Budget Review Committee will be dealing with as we go along.
So as we discussed the FY '24 budget, which will be coming sooner rather than later, and which this is related to, as of April 1st, the Performing Arts Center is opening, and if we have 750 people there for every performance, all of those people have to pay for parking. So parking revenue should go up, because you normally don't have any people downtown on nights and weekends, and if things go well, parking revenue should increase.
Could I follow up?
Alderman Jettie?
In order to make that happen, we're going to have to change the parking ordinance because parking, the fees for parking end at 7 PM.
Not in the garage though, do they? Or do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can change the ordinance.
Right, so we have to, we ought
Yeah.
to do something about that.
Talk to the
it's-
chair infrastructure.
It's already been done. Let me caution you, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But when the parking study gets released, I'll warn you, it's everything you wanted to know about parking that we're afraid to ask. Okay? Now, you bring up several different subjects. How can you get somebody to be, this ain't the era of the Beatles or lovely Rita the meter maid, you know? They can make more money at McDonald's. Okay, it's a competition for that particular labor force at this time. And then looking, Nashua's got a pretty good bang for the buck for what we're charging right now. So all this will be discussed, it will be before your perusal, before anything becomes activated. I'm kind of like with an agreement with Director Cummings. Instead of letting it out piecemeal and let the argument ensue, I think the smart way is to deliver the product at once, allow it to be properly vetted by this board. And believe me, you know, you're going to be very busy. This is going to be several meetings within the infrastructure and everything else, because it's a complex issue. It's a lot of moving targets with it. So be careful what you wish for, but it is coming.
Any other aldermanic comments? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien, your favorite motion?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn.
By roll call.
By roll call.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes,
welcome again.
thank you.
Alderman Sullivan,
Yes.
Alderman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Our chairman, Alderman Dowd.
Yes,
Okay.
we're adjourned at 7:53 PM.